bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right. Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. Today's Wednesday, August 30th, 241 days into the new year, just 124 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? It is Wednesday. Yeah. Tonight we have very special guests with us, fellow Fadernaut and author Ray Davis is here. Now, this is being billed as an evening of Anunnaki. Can you think of anything better? I think not. Man, what a week we've had on the show. Jay Widener, Jay Dyer, last night Clifford Mahudi, tonight Ray Davis, and you know, we get to spread the knowledge, and I get to sit here and host this stuff, man. I posted last night, somebody pinch me, right? Just somebody, please pinch me. Absolutely good times going on. Good times. Okay, now, a couple of things. So let's just get some stuff out of the way because I've got to do some chatting here about some other stuff. But, let's see what's going on here. What's going on here? Okay. That can be ignored. Okay. Now, let's just get some stuff out of the way so we can just move forward as quickly as possible. You can follow me on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do as quickly as you can at JChurchRadio. That sandbox is hashtag F2B. So if you want to hang out in the sandbox or one of our chat rooms, everything is live and in front of me. You can do that. If you want to participate in any of the conversations, go to the chat room over at KGRA. Go to the chat room in Spreaker or hang out with us on Twitter. Everything is live and in front of me at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black Questions. So any questions or comments during the show, you can post them right there. Very simple. Okay, email throughout the show is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can just go right now over to our website. Click on the podcast banner. We have over 700 archive shows right there. Custom apps, Apple, Android, all platforms, just $2 a month. Go to the Apple iStore, go to Google, go to the Google Store, and download the app that you need. It's free. Then go back to Libsyn, get your account. It's $2 a month, okay? It's updated every single day. Very simple. Now, or if you want to become an official Fadernaut, just go to our membership section on the site. You can go all the way from free down to full-on Game Changer, where you're going to get, with the free section, you get a bunker cam. You get the bunker cam. You go to the bunker cam area on our website every Thursday night for Fader Night. You get it for free. Commercial-free downloadable archives. You can get autographed hats, T-shirts, you want me to autograph your T-shirt, I will. But you just got to put it in the email. Okay, but all of the hats are autographed. The Fade to Black hats, which are embroidered, top shelf, really, really nice hats. Ask anybody who has got one. Very cool hats. They are not for sale. They're not for sale. We just came from the Disclosure, Eclipse of Disclosure Conference. No hats for sale. Got T-shirts for sale. No hats. Man, I had so many people come, hey, man, okay, so what's up with the hats, man? Can I get a hat? Nope. And that's it. There's a line in the sand. Fadernauts, game changers. The exclusivity of those hats is, it makes me feel so good. If I see one of those Fade to Black hats running around, that is a real Fadernaut. So think about that. Okay, so you can get all of that in our membership area. All of our sponsors, Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, River Moon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, Studio Dome Speakers. We tried to get up the Sacred Skulls banners today on the website. Still prepping the art. They just look amazing, so they'll be up tomorrow. But Sacred Skulls, all of our sponsors, please visit them because that's how we put this show on. It's with our really cool, amazing sponsorship family. And I got a really cool email from New Pharma today. I'm not going to read it on the air. It's one of those personal things. But somebody that, has been having issues for 7 or 8 years and serious things. And I got to say to read this email, it just made me feel so good. I mean, just an absolutely amazing email. So go visit New Pharma. New Pharma. It's gnupharma.com. Promo code there is F2B. And you're going to get a full 33%. You get the dealer cost on their stuff. So there you go. And Life Change Tea started it again today. I'm on the fresh cycle of Life Change Tea. I got an email the other day from one of the Vadernauts. It was great. Okay, Jimmy, so I've done the Studio Dome speakers. I've the Life Change Tea. The Life Change Tea is amazing. Everything that you do. And today I'm getting the Fade to Black blend. And, I used to post pictures because I get them every day of you Fadernauts out there with a table full of our sponsors, right? And taking a picture of it and sending it in going, see, dude, this is what's up. So thank you for that, okay? This is a family. All right, so let's get this show cracking today. Happy birthday to comedian Lewis Black. Today, he is 69 years old. Lewis Black. I love Lewis. Man, if anybody knows how to offend through comedy and have it make sense, it's Lewis Black. He's one of the funniest guys out there, period. On this day in history, OTD. 1963, the United States and the Soviet Union and their hotline goes into operation. They signed a little note of cooperation, and it took 2 months. But today, in 1963, that hotline went live. And the first phone call, hello, Dimitri. All right, if you don't get the joke, if you haven't seen the movie. But truly one of the great scenes ever in cinema. Hello, Dimitri. Can you turn the radio down? The music is a little loud. Fader fact, people from Ohio curse the most as compared to every other state in the union. Ohio curses the most. And a lot of reasons come to mind. Ohio State, LeBron James. Oh, man. I had to. The Cincinnati Reds. I had to. The Bengals. I had to. Love Ohio, but they have a... You know what, though? You drive around Ohio. You go to different cities in Ohio, and this is one of the cool things. My parents lived there for a long time right outside of Columbus in Gahanna. And you go to this... I've been all over Ohio so many times. and you drive around. I am serious about this. Probably more restaurants per capita in Ohio than anywhere in the country. I mean, just cool restaurant after restaurant after restaurant after restaurant in every single city. Ohio loves their restaurants, and apparently they love to swear at them as well. Okay, I blame the Browns. That coming from Bob. I blame the Browns. Okay, all right. All right, this is what we're going to do now. Here we go. All right, I want to remind everybody, tonight, Ray Davis is here. We're going to do the Anunnaki tonight. And it's a show that, I prep sometimes for shows, right? I'll prep for the guest and do a little studying. Not when it comes to the Anunnaki. I'm ready. I've just got my knowledge on tonight. I am, pen and paper are out. I will pick something out of every conversation tonight. It is going to go down. Hello, Dimitri. That's right. That's coming in from Jason. You get it. Okay. All right, so you want to post that, and I'm seeing it in Twitter. I'm seeing it. What movie is that from? What movie is that from? The first person to post what movie that is from, I'll send you a book. I'll send you something autographed. Okay? We'll see how long that takes to pop up. Okay. All right. Today, where's my River Moon? Strange Love, IPD. IPD was first. He beat out Jason, who did the quote. Jason, you lost out by 20 seconds. All three of you are good. I got to give it to IPD. You know what? Yeah. Scott T. Richard. Yeah, that is pretty weird, Scott. Really? You're 10-10-62? That's like David Lee Roth, right? That's pretty trippy. Ohio, Michigan, and Indy. Yeah, that's pretty bleeping trippy right there. All right, Bob, Jason, IPD, Olivia came in strong too. All right, I'll send all of you books. But I need email from all of you, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Make sure I have your addresses. All right, I'll send all of you guys books. It's really cool that you guys know that. All right? Okay. Now, these are truly exciting times that we are in right now in our UFO community. Can I at least get a pamphlet or something? These are exciting times. Right now, we have the Nazca mummies, all of them. We have the Malibu base. We have the sightings that have been going on. We have orbs everywhere. Now that I have seen a real orb with my own two eyes and not through a photograph or a camera or some digital, but with my eyeballs. We have Corey Good. We have Antarctica. We have exoplanets, politicians, Tom DeLonge. Right now, day to day, the movie Unacknowledged coming out, right? We have all of this going on, and then on top of all of that, we've got all of the infighting going on with different elements of our community, which means to me, these are great times. These are exciting. Never before in the history of ufology or us or the human race has it been this cool. And right now, we get to witness all of it. Think about this for a second. A few years from now, you'll be able to say, hey, I was there. I was listening to Fade to Black every single night. And, dude, it was on. We had this going on and this and this and this and this research and this sighting and this video and this and that, books. And it was all happening. It was an amazing time. You will remember this forever because we are able to look back into the annals of history and look at ufology and see some other pretty amazing moments from the past. And think about this for a second. If you go back, we can kind of start with, things that pop into my mind. Betty and Barney Hill. Big story. Big situation. Movie. Think about that, right? Big moment in history. Betty Andreessen. The Andreessen affair. rocked the UFO community. Travis Walton, right? Think about this for a second. Moments in ufology in the past that were huge and are with us to this day. But that wasn't even the big stuff, because then Bob Lazar broke out with his story, bringing Area 51 into our homes worldwide. Big stuff for sure. Area 51 rumored, right? Area 51 sort of talked about. Base out there in the desert, crazy stuff, secret airplanes, but wasn't supposed to exist. Bob Lazar comes out. Now you've got people camping out on the hilltops and looking into Area 51 and the sightings, and the rest is history, right? Big stuff, to be sure. And then MJ-12. Think about this. MJ-12 comes along. The documents. Stanton Friedman and William Bill Moore, Jamie Chandray, right? Think about Richard Doty, right? All these cats. Linda Moulton Howe on the fringe of that, and everything that was going on there. Again, huge stuff. And then Rendlesham, big events. Rendlesham, huge event in ufology, right? Potentially even bigger still than MJ-12 or maybe even Bob Lazar, Travis Walton or Betty and Barney Hill. These were moments in our history, and I can go back, going back to Betty and Barney Hill or Andreessen or Travis or Bob Lazar. I remember, well, maybe not Betty and Barney Hill. That came later when I started reading the books. But Travis Walton, I remember when that story broke. I remember that. I remember when Bob Lazar broke. I remember these moments. MJ-12. Oh, my goodness gracious. Rendlesham, right? Where we all know where we were when these stories broke, and they stay with us today. But none of the above. None of everything that I just talked about, no matter how you feel about those reports today, none of it is like what we are going through right now. None of it. It's not even close. Even the other stories that were big for a moment have become just a mere footnote in our history. Little bumps in the road, little speed bumps. And I'm talking about things that not only we have covered and that made the news somewhat and made our circles, but they are now just things like cattle mutilations. Cattle mutilations. As big as that story was, just a mere bump in the road. When you're talking about ufology today, or you're talking about the existence, and you're talking about everything that is going on in contact, do you bring up cattle mutilations in the conversation? You do not. You don't. It's okay. I'm just saying, go with me. What about things like Nazi craft, right? You're going to sit around by the campfire and you're going to talk about the things that are going on today. You're going to bring up Nazi craft. You are not. Black triangles. I photographed them. I have a photograph of a black triangle on film that I shot myself. How many times have I mentioned it on this show? Twice? I don't bring it up in conversation. I'm doing a presentation for people at a conference. I don't bring it up. I don't whip the photograph out. Black triangles. Crazy phenomenon. TR-3Bs. Belgium. Footnotes. That's it. Horns in the clouds. Remember that? Worldwide phenomenon. The cover of Communion. No, I'm just kidding. The cover of Communion is still one of the most significant things in UFO history. But what about Nordics? Reptilians, the Greys, the insectoids. Right? Turning into mere footnotes. Things that we just accept. It goes into the book, and there it is. It's part of the collective mass. The motherships. The motherships, another thing, a part of our UFO history. It was a big deal. The motherships come, the small ships leave and cruise around the planet, go back up into the motherships and take off back to Zeta Reticuli. Yeah. And it flips me out. Beam ships. Talk about a bump in the road of ufology, right? In our community. Then you have something like Billy Meyer. Turns out to be one of the great hoaxes of ever. He pulled it off. Got me. He got me. He certainly got me. I wouldn't be here today on this microphone if it wasn't for Billy Meyer sucking me in. But Billy Meyer, a mere footnote in ufology. Past tense, passe, forgotten. Today, are you seriously going to put your game face on and talk to some other abductee, somebody else that has had experiences, and you're sitting under the night sky, you got the campfire going, and some crazy light flies overhead and flashes at you, and you guys go, wow, there goes something really cool. And then you're going to spin around and bring up Billy Meyer? You are not. Now, think about this. Just listen. All of it pales in comparison to what we are witnessing today. We are on the brink. Science, technology, and the fringe are all converging. It's all coming together. It's overlapping. We know it. All of us know it. Science knows it. Technology knows it. Engineers know it. Politicians know it. You know it. Those out there that are not part of our community know it. They see it. They feel it. Inside and out of our community. We are on the brink. Something is about to break, and it's about to break big. Sooner or later, there was and is going to be something to push us all over the edge. It's getting ready. And I think now it's coming from many sides all at the same time. I do. First we have night vision. I talk about it so much on this show because it is very important. Night vision. This is something that nobody would have predicted 20, 30, 40 years ago to be in the hands of any civilian who can afford them. Just to be able to go out, pop these things on, military grade, look up into the night sky and see things that you can't explain. Now, surely a lot of it could be satellites. And I'm saying could be because we don't actually know. But absolutely could be satellites. There are tens of thousands of satellites right now up there. Tens of thousands. You don't see tens of thousands of satellites in night vision all at once passing like on the 405 freeway up above you, going east to west, west to east, north to south, polar orbit. It's not like that. Okay? And the things that you see in night vision, if you want to determine that something is a satellite up there, okay, that's fine. I have no issues with that because it could be. But that does not explain the weird stuff, the truly weird stuff. Not only that I have seen, but that you have seen too as well. Okay? When you have something take off from planet Earth and fly up into the stars and take a left-hand turn and disappear, that ain't a satellite. It ain't a plane. It ain't a helicopter. It ain't a rocket. I don't know what it is, but it ain't any of the above. Now, that's first. Second, we have observatories and satellites confirming planets out there, when just a few short decades ago, there were none. Zero, zilch, nada. None. No planets. Theorized. Yeah, okay, a star could have there could be another star out there that's like our sun that has a planet. It's possible. It could happen. You know, there are billions and billions of stars. How many have planets? And well, we don't. Right? Today, thousands confirmed. Thousands. Perhaps hundreds of millions in just our own galaxy. That's crazy stuff. We are living it today. Third, got to drive this home. Politicians are talking about aliens publicly, out in the open. Mainstream media. Never before has it all happened all at the same time. Fourth, FSBs, fast radio burst, and now laser contact and communication. Talked about weekly in the mainstream. Crazy stuff. They're trying to make sense out of it. They know something is going on. Maybe they do actually know now what this communication is, but that communication has been made public with us in the mainstream. Never before. Never. Don't bring up the movie Contact. I love that movie. But, one of the stars of that movie we're working on getting on Fade to Black. So I'm just going to let you know right now who is it going to be. Fifth, of course we have the Nazca mummies. We have to talk about this. It's all going on at the same time. While we are still waiting for the DNA test to be completed, we have near dead silence from the mainstream media. And the reason why I'm concerned about that is they usually jump on a great hoax story. That's one of the favorite things of mainstream media to do, is to make everybody laugh about a great hoax. A great hoax is great news, and they will always write. Right now, everybody loves a good hoax, including the mainstream media. They ain't talking about this one. Nothing. That's more interesting than if they were poking fun at it. And sixth, of course, we have Corey Goode and the Blue Avions. And there have been hundreds, if not thousands of people who have come forward with stories about alien contact, riding on ships, traveling the solar system and the universe with every type of alien being that you can imagine, even Jesus, who then write a book about it, make a documentary, travel the circuit, giving lectures, right? But then there's Corey Goode. I remember once listening to someone give a lecture about a camping trip and about being abducted and being taken to an underground base. And in this room, there were 4 or 5 alien races and members of the Joint Chiefs, everybody all in uniform. And this person was naming who was there in this room, right? All told in great detail. And at the end, I raised my hand and I asked, literally, I said, well, what evidence do you have? And the answer that I got, there was like 300 people in this room, and the answer that I got was, I don't remember anything. This was all done from regression therapy. You know, fine, I get that. But the audience almost took me outside and hung me from a tree. It got nasty. Hey, man, it was regression therapy, man. Take it easy on this part, man. Think about this. And then now we have Corey Goode today. We need to ride this out. I don't know what is real and what is not with Corey. That is not the point. The point is we sit and listen. I almost got lynched from a tree because I asked for evidence. Today, it seems like it is the thing to do now in our UFO community. You know what? I'm not endorsing. I'm not unendorsing. I'm not that. I'm a radio host. And I bring people on this show to bring forward their experiences. And that's what we do here. These are exciting times. Exciting times. You will remember these moments for the rest of your life. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Ray Davis is here. A full Anunnaki evening right here on Fade to Black. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black.
You create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. Let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply and, of course, the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic, and very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game with getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Again, getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Very simple, at JChurchRadio. And then use hashtag F2B. Come and join in on the conversation. We don't bite over there. If you take a step to the left or to the right, you will get bitten, though. Love the Fader Nods. Tonight, very special guest Ray Davis is here. And as promised, a full evening of the Anunnaki. Tomorrow night is another Fader Night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom Live. And maybe a little bit later we'll have time for some phone calls. But right now it's about Ray. Ray Davis graduated from the University of Kansas with a BS in Education and History. He is a writer, thinker, and speaker committed to helping people shift paradigms in ways that better their lives and better the planet. He published 2 books, Anunnaki Awakening, Revelation, first in a trilogy, and The Power to Be You, 416 Empowering Thoughts for Daily Life. After nearly dying at the age of 25, Ray has spent the last 25 years studying the world's great religious texts, comparative mythology, ufology, cosmology, and psychology. His unique take on human history is drawn from years of research and long hours of pondering how those pieces fit together. Tonight, we'll discuss the Anunnaki and how the history of our species is far more complex and muddled than the accounts in our high school history books will tell us. I would like to welcome fellow Fadernaut, Ray Davis, to Fade to Black. Ray, good evening, sir. How are you?
Jimmy, good evening. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Fellow Fadernaut, made it through, man. How does that feel?
Really good. I've been listening for a long time, so that really means a lot. Thank you.
Now, I'm gonna blow up Twitter right now for you, so everybody in Twitter understands who this is. This is Ray. Now, Ray, you get the first-time guest disclaimer, so let's get that out of the way. This is just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where the conversation starts, it starts, and where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. Are you ready to go?
I am more than ready.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Kansas City area. In fact, my wife and I both grew up in that area, got our 50-year card there a few years ago, and then moved to Boston a couple of years ago, but spent all my growing up years in and around the Kansas City area.
Which Kansas City?
The Kansas side.
The Kansas side. You know what's funny? I bet if you're not in that part of the country, but you just go around the country and you ask people about, or ask them, they would have no clue what we are talking about right now. Isn't that funny?
It is true.
It is 100% true. Now, so I would say that you're on the good side. I'll say that you're on the real side. Let's just go with that. Kansas City barbecue. Is it all that everybody, pumps it up to be?
Well, I can only say this. In my day job, I am involved in training, and we bring people into Kansas City, for many, many years for training at the company that I work at, and everybody looks forward to the barbecue, and no one has ever gone away disappointed.
You know what? Fights have broken out, right? I mean, countries have fallen. Men have died over who's got the best Kansas City barbecue in Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real deal thing. I've gone to different restaurants. I've had people at restaurants come at me in that restaurant and say, "Yeah, it's okay here, but you should try this over there." Right? And you know what I'm talking. Yeah, it's really, really funny. So the whole Kansas City barbecue thing, everybody that's listening to us, that is a real dilemma. It's a real deal thing in Kansas City. They take their barbecue very, very serious. So you grew up there, and you also went to college there. How far out of the state have you ventured?
Well, as an adult, later on in life, I've traveled quite a bit. A few years ago, I spent 3 months in the Philippines. My wife took a year-long job assignment there, and I was able to go over there for 3 months and spend some time there, which was a real eye-opener. I think as Americans, we have a very bubbled existence. We don't really see what goes on in the rest of the world, and it's really eye-opening to go someplace else and see people who don't have nearly as much as we have here, and yet are still happy, which is kind of an awakening for anyone to have. But I've traveled around the United States a lot. We've been to Germany, Costa Rica, a number of other countries, and we really enjoy traveling. Hawaii is kind of our favorite spot. We'd like to wind up there someday. We're big Hawaii fans.
I used to, and when you leave the country, and it doesn't really matter what country you go to. You can go to some crazily well-developed situation like the UK or Germany or France or Netherlands and Japan. But once you go down a couple of tier levels, right, and you experience what it's like there, and you think about what we have here in the United States, and that is a real eye-opener. And it's sad in one aspect, but the other part of it is you really do get an appreciation for this country, and you come back and you hear certain elements of our own society, our own citizens here talking smack about this country, and that those people that are speaking the loudest have never been outside of the United States. They have no clue, no clue whatsoever. And you're so right about that. There was down in Panama from my house with a pair of binoculars, I could look. Well, I didn't need the binoculars across this little bay right there. It's called the Bay of Panama, but it's, I don't know, half mile across or something. But right on the other side of it was this very, very poor section of Panama City, which says a lot to say that there's a poor section because anyway, called Chorrillo. And next to Chorrillo, they had this place where they incinerated corpses, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. That's what they did there. at that field where they did this was also a soccer field. Now, you call it a soccer field because that's where they played soccer. It was a dirt patch. But somehow they got it lit up, right? I don't know how that happened, but they would play soccer there at night with these soccer goals made out of spare wood, like Coca-Cola cartons. I don't know. I don't know. But they somehow would get a couple of goals up there. And these kids, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, out there, a couple of hundred of them playing soccer every night. And I would watch them with my binoculars, playing like they were in the World Cup, right? Next to where they are, you know what I mean? I'm talking about poor. You've never seen so many smiling faces and happiness, right? And it's sad. It makes you, wonder, about your own existence. But at the same time, you really, and here I am with binoculars across the bay, looking at them from a golf course. You know what I mean? Just a total opposite of what's going on. And once you see that reality, it really opens up your eyes. So enough of that. Okay. Yeah, you're absolutely right. With this trip that you went on in investigating the Anunnaki, growing up, was your family into the supernatural, the paranormal, or ufology? What was that like growing up, and how did you stumble upon this life's path?
Well, that's a long and twisted story, but let's get into that a little bit. So no, not really. My family really is not into this sort of thing. But my dad was a little bit when I was really, really young. In fact, I've told this story a number of times that what got me hooked, I was, I think, 6 or 7 years old, and my dad had read Erich von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods. And when the movie came out, we actually went and saw it in the theater. And I can remember sitting there as young as I was. And I was kind of always one of those kids that would say stuff and the adults would kind of scratch their heads because I don't know, I always, especially when I was very young, I had, I think, some insights into some things. And then as I kind of got assimilated into the culture, we can talk about that later, you kind of lose those things. But I was hooked right away. And I mean, read everything I could, even at that age. When In Search Of came on with Leonard Nimoy later on, that was must-see TV for me. But no one else in my family was really that interested in, nor any of my friends really. It was just something that I've always had a passion for.
And for me, the same thing, because we're very close to being the same age here. And Chariots of the Gods, that book, the movie, was a big deal here in the United States, and it was a cultural phenomenon. And what I did, I went and saw it at the theater. But you know what I used to do, Ray? There were television commercials for it on TV, and I would wait for that TV commercial to get to that section about Nazca, right, with the plane flying over. And when I saw that at the movie theater, it was towards the end of the movie too, I had to sit through the whole. But anyway, I would sit around and wait for those TV commercials. It just blew my mind, and I think all of us owe a great debt to Erich von Daniken and that book and that movie for exposing it on such a global level. Absolutely. Well, did you have the luck or the chance to see anything in the skies when you were a kid?
Not when I was a kid. Well, so I had a couple of experiences when I was a kid that I didn't really understand until later on. As far as UFOs, I've seen 3, and they've all been as an adult. But I had a really interesting experience when I was very young. I don't know how old I was. I was I was able to walk, so I was obviously not a toddler, but I was still in a crib, I think. And I have this memory, and I've shared this again a couple of times before, where I was crying. I think I was sick or something, and I was crying, and I couldn't understand why my parents weren't coming in. And it was middle of the night, house was dark. Someone or something got me out of the bed, walked me into their room, and all the lights were on in their room, and my parents were sitting on the edge of the bed, like in a trance, not moving. And I'm like calling out to them, and they're not moving at all. I was told they can't help you, they can't do anything to help you or whatever. And I don't, for years, I never remembered what happened after that. Later on, you were talking earlier about the regressive hypnosis. I had some of that done at one point in time, and eventually in a meditation session, and I don't know, 20, 25 years ago now, I had the memory of turning around after that incident and seeing what would be called a traditional gray. And you were also mentioning the communion cover earlier, and I remember seeing that book back in the 80s when that first came out on the book stand. And I walked into the store and I walked by it twice and I looked at it. And this was before I even had the memory of what I had seen. I had to read that book, and I took it home and did not put it down until I was done with it. And so I had this experience. The next morning, of course, my parents played it off, said, "Oh, it was a dream," or that wasn't true, and all this sort of thing. But I mean, it was real. I was up. I was standing there watching them. The lights were on. They were frozen, couldn't do anything. And after that, I had a number of. I used to experience a shadow, that I would call it, coming to my window at night, and I would have dreams about being abducted and my parents being. Now these were actual dreams of being abducted. Them being disabled in one way or another, unable to help me, and. It was weird because in my dreams, this is going to be funny, I guess, but in my dreams, the characters were TV characters. So the lead person who was abducting me was Colonel Hogan from Hogan's Heroes.
Okay.
And then there were other TV characters who did this. And this went on for a number of times, but this shadow would come to the window, and I would tell my parents there's this shadow outside. They would say, "Ignore it, you're fine, whatever." And this went on for a number of years until I finally had a dream where they told me they weren't going to come and do this anymore. And I never had that dream or that experience again. So, I don't really know what to make of all of that. I know the one experience was very real. I think the others may have just been dreams, but it's clear I was tuned into this kind of thing from a very early age.
Did you talk to other people or friends or family about this?
Not really. I never really had any friends growing up who were really into this kind of thing. I had a couple of really good friends that, you could talk about, quote, anything to, but never really about this sort of thing. And I think as I got a little bit older and kind of got into sports and school and other things, I think I just kind of, blended into the culture, and you kind of get this amnesia, I think, that a lot of people are suffering from, that doesn't allow them to see these things anymore. And it wasn't until much later when I was an adult that I began to get interested in it again. When I almost died, that was really an important moment in my life. That's really what put me on the trajectory I'm on now, because that made me reevaluate everything. I went back and wanted to find out, what this life is all about, what people around the world think the meaning of life is. That's what got me into all the different, religious texts, mythology, things like that. And then I was able to start putting some context into this. And I've ever since then really made this a really important part of my life. Trying to maintain a normal life on the side, but also researching these things, studying these things. And then a few years ago, when we became empty nesters, it was time for me to get back into this whole hog. So that's kind of what's led me to writing this book and doing these sorts of things. But you'd asked about UFOs. I've seen 3. 2 of them were within a few weeks of each other back in the early 90s. And, what I classify as a UFO, I'm not one of those people that goes out and every light I see in the sky I think is a UFO. I mean, there are things that are obvious, obviously, human technology. There are things that are different things. But the ones I saw, one was a light that I saw hanging in the sky. I was working a job at that time. I was pretty young, working 2 jobs. One of the jobs I was in and out of a building all night long, and there was this light in the sky that was kind of the shade of a street light, kind of that yellowish tint of a street light that was just hanging in the sky all night as I was working. And I lived about 15 miles from where I worked, and down a major highway there in Kansas City. And this thing followed me along the highway, along the tree line, all the way back to my apartment. My apartment was right on the highway, up in a hill overlooking it. So I got up to my apartment, left the lights out, went out on my deck and waited, and this thing drops below the horizon. So it was late at night, got something to eat, I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden it pops up again. I see it pop up again across the horizon, come over the highway, come over the parking lot of our apartment complex. Still just this single light, and then it lights up, and you could see this thing was much larger than it had appeared earlier, with all multi-different colored lights. And what was odd is there were some people standing in the parking lot. The lights were reflecting on the parking lot. They didn't seem to really notice what was going on. I stood there for about 30 seconds, kind of with my jaw hitting the ground, and then this thing shot off to the southwest. I mean, no noise, no anything, just way faster than anything that you would ever see a human craft do. So that was the first one I saw. About 5 or 6 weeks later, I had the exact same experience, except when I got back to the apartment, this thing went way up high and then blinked out to kind of a bluish color and kind of blended in with the stars. In fact, if I hadn't seen what it did, it would have looked like one of the stars.
Right.
And so that was really bizarre. The third one was a number of years later. I was on my way back actually from a business trip to New York, flying into O'Hare late at night, and we were over Lake Michigan waiting to land. And there was a half circle of commercial jets waiting to land, and up from the lake, up from below us, came this bright light being chased by something that was obviously a fighter jet. And this light was just maneuvering in ways that were just crazy. The jet was not able to keep up with it, was not able to maneuver with it, and eventually it shot straight up. But what I found really intriguing about that, on top of the fact that this thing was doing things that the jet couldn't match, is this was all going on in the middle of a commercial air pattern. And I find it a little hard to believe that the military was conducting some sort of a planned exercise that was taking them right in the middle of 8 or 10 planes getting ready to land at O'Hare. So those are my 3 UFO stories.
Pretty incredible, actually. I wanted to ask you, I didn't want to interrupt, but the first one where the street light looking, came out over the parking lot, when it came towards you from the horizon, did it get bigger?
Well, all I could see until it got over our parking lot and hovered for about 30 seconds was just that small street light shape.
Right.
And then when the other lights lit up, you could see, thinking back now, I don't know, I would say it was maybe 20, 25 feet across. I really couldn't determine the shape that well, but there were a number of lights that all seemed to be on the bottom and the sides of it, red, green, blue lights, all multicolored lights.
Wow.
And no noise. But you could see the lights on the parking lot. Like the lights were blinking and you could see them flashing on the parking lot.
Wow, that's incredible. Any reports in the news?
I looked. There was nothing at the time. I've asked online, a number of years later if anyone had seen anything around that time, and nothing that I ever saw. And at that time, I didn't even think to report it to MUFON or anything. But
right. What year?
Yeah.
What year did this sighting happen?
This was 1991.
1991. Very interesting sighting. That's really, really, really cool. And also, it's getting ready to say, and Allison just posted O'Hare, super, super busy airport.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The sightings like this, when they happen, they usually, you're not expecting it unless you're out there doing night vision with it, where you're looking for something like this. But then it happens most of the time when you're least expecting it. How has that changed, your life view? Or were you already on that path? But was this a sort of, your own disclosure, your own confirmation?
I already... and I have to admit that around this time, again, this was within 18 months probably of me almost dying, spending 6 weeks in a hospital. Really should have died. My doctor told me that I should have died. And around this time, I was reading everything I could get my hands on ufology. This is when I'd already read Strieber's books at that time, but I was getting every book I could get from the bookstore, from the library, just reading everything I could on it. So I obviously had a focus on it, which made the fact that this was happening even more bizarre, because it was almost, you had this sense that someone knew I was really intrigued in this, and I was being shown something. Around the same time, I also had a very weird missing time event. So I was At the time, I was living in an apartment with my brother and a friend, and they both tended to be out on weekends. My brother was dating his then soon-to-be wife at that time, and he was usually gone on weekends, and our friend would go back to see his family out in western Kansas, and so I would have the apartment to myself, and I would get home on a Friday night, and I had a job at that time that was very mentally taxing, and I was just exhausted, and a lot of times I would just crash out on the living room floor. So I was laying there listening to Michael Stern's famous album at that time, Encounter, of all things. And lights are off. It's wintertime, so it's dark. And I'm listening to this music, and I look over at the clock, and it's 8:04 p.m. And I'm laying there for about 10 minutes listening to the music. And I look over the clock again, and the clock just flipped to 3:04 a.m. And I laid there for a minute, and I thought, wow, this is bizarre, because I know I've been listening to that music constantly. I've been listening for about 10 minutes, and that 7 hours did not pass. I get up and I go to the kitchen, and I flip the light on, and I could see light in the room slowly filling the room, and then when I would flip the light back off, slowly evacuating the room, like almost in slow motion. And this went on for about 15 minutes until finally it kind of went back to normal. But it seemed like there was some sort of a time distortion in the apartment. I have no memory of what might have happened that time. My memory is that I was conscious listening to the music the entire time. And I know this kind of stuff sounds crazy to people, but it's like, it was a real experience. Sometimes I kind of miss this stuff because I have not had these sorts of experiences in a number of years, but it was really fascinating to watch that light do that. And that seemed to be some sort of physical confirmation of the fact that,
what year was it? What year was this, Ray?
That would have been 1990. So a little bit before the silence.
You were still puffing the weed. That's okay. I went through the
once ever in my life. And my brother has.
Oh man, that happened to me a couple of times with the Frank Zappa album, but that's a whole nother show. That's really cool. And we're gonna head towards a break here, but I've had my couple little experiences of, and I've shared them with everybody, out driving and getting lost and not remembering where I was, but I was across the street from my house, right? Little things like that. And coming out of it, when we go through some kind of time lapse or some kind of weird thing that happens, it's hard to explain to people. And you don't want them to think that you're crazy. So what do? You never tell anybody. You just keep it to yourself. But not tonight, Ray. Everybody knows the story. Our guest tonight, Ray Davis. We're going to do Anunnaki all evening tonight. When we come back, we'll start talking about his first book. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Ray right now. It's Anunnaki Awakening. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. life-changing, the real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product. What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tappy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses of the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Our guest tonight, Ray Davis. An all Anunnaki evening tonight, as promised. Now, Ray, let's get straight to it. How were you first exposed to the Anunnaki?
So, like so many people, I was first exposed to it through Zecharia Sitchin's work. Back in the early 90s, around the same time, very important part of my life, I think, there was a radio host in Kansas City named Mike Murphy, who actually hosted Coast to Coast for Art back in the day.
That's right.
A couple of times. Mm-hmm. And he used to do shows on this sort of thing, and he had Zecharia on a number of times. So I went out and picked up the books and read them, and I was very intrigued by that because, history was my background. And I had read a lot of the standard writings about these things. And this was kind of a wake-up call for me that there might be a different way to look at this information. And so definitely through Zecharia Sitchin is where I was exposed to it for the first time.
How did you go out and start to research? It's a very difficult subject. Today, there's a lot of data out there, but when you're talking about 1990, 91, certainly there was Sitchin, but there's not a whole lot of reference material out there, was there?
No, there was not. It really wasn't until the internet, I think, came along that there was more information. Thankfully, I didn't start trying to write this book or really getting into this topic too in depth before that. Really, what I did is I went back and read more. I touched on the Sumerian stuff a little bit in school. But I went back and read more of the the quote unquote mainstream writings about that. I've always been interested. As I said, after I died, I went in and began studying different religions, mythologies. I've read the Bible through many times. I've read most of the Indian texts. I've read many of the North American cultures, things like that, and was a big fan, honestly, of the writings of Joseph Campbell. And one of the things that I felt like he really brought to the table was this idea that there's a lot of commonality in all of these stories all over the world. And so, when I look at this, I look at it very holistically that way, that we're kind of seeing a repeating pattern. And I'm sure there's sharing that went on among different cultures in the ancient world where some of this stuff was shared. To me, the Sumerian story seemed to be, at least in this go around, the source material that informed the other ones. And I realize there are people who may disagree with that, think it was Egypt or other things, or even Genesis. But I really believe that the core of the stories that infiltrated throughout the Near East and around the Mediterranean really began there. So whether or not that's actually the cradle of human civilization is a debate, but it certainly to me is the cradle of those mythologies and those stories that then later led into many other things, including, somewhat controversially, I guess, but the three major monotheistic faiths in the West. I mean, all of those really come down to one moment, right? When this man named Abram was called out by God out of the Sumerian city of Ur. And that's kind of where, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have their root right there in that moment. So, it's a good question to ask, who was the God that was calling him, and what was the agenda and the reason for doing that. And so that's kind of where I started when I began researching this for the book.
Now, you have a degree in history and education, and as you studied for your degree, was there anything about what you were going to do in the future? Was any of this stuff talked about in college when you were there? And I mean, becoming a history major, a BS, you are supposed to have been exposed to everything in its totality. Mm-hmm. World history, U.S. history, European history, of course, the world wars, but then there's all of the religion, and it should be all-encompassing. Did it touch upon the Anunnaki story and the Sumerian texts and the origin mythos?
No.
At all.
And people think that's a conspiracy theory that stuff is ignored. Now, what I did have is in fifth grade, and she's gone now, she's passed, I'm sure, but my fifth grade teacher, I think, obviously had an interest in this, because we spent a bunch of time on way more than was in the book on Sumeria in fifth grade in history. So that goes way back then. But in college, no. It was all about Egypt and Greece and Rome and those cultures, kind of the traditional cultures, and the Sumerian culture was largely ignored. I think there were probably specific classes on it that I could have taken that I didn't take, but just in the general history, it was not emphasized, in comparison to those other ancient cultures.
I had, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I had a fourth grade teacher. I doubt that she is still with us. Her name was Mrs. Lafferty. And she read this one semester. She read A Wrinkle in Time to the class, right? Which I loved. Not only that book, but the way that she read to us. Anyway, I remember her specifically telling us that time travel was real, right? I remember, and I'm in fourth grade, man. I believe anything, right? And she was telling us about the possibility of scientists in other dimensions and parallel worlds. And I mean, what a cool thing for a teacher to say in 1970, 71 to her class. I don't know how hip and cool she was. I don't have that kind of memory, but she did do that. And I don't think she has any idea of the impact she had on her class and what I believe in today. I go back and I think of what I'm trying to think of the lady that wrote A Wrinkle in Time, Madame Ingle. What was her name? It doesn't matter. That would set me on my life's journey, right? Those things, and it's interesting how college was one thing, but you want to look back, at an event in the fifth grade that was probably more impactful than anything else that you studied in higher learning.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how that happens. It really is. Now, back to the Anunnaki. When you refer to the one, right, the creator that is being referred to by Abraham in Ur, what do you think now, with all of your research, that reference is?
Well, so this is kind of what my book is about. I mean, and it's a novel, it's fiction, right? And the reason I did that is I wanted the freedom to speculate. I didn't want to have to be tied to what I could prove. What I think happened, based on my research, is I really believe that the God that called Abram out of Ur was Enlil. I believe that he, at that time, I mean, you look in the plain text of the Bible, and there's over and over again where the God that eventually would be called Yahweh by the Israelites makes the point that he's the only God. There's no other gods. Forget all the other gods that you ever knew about before. There's only me. And I think there are a number of ties. There have been some really good papers that you can find online written about the linkages between Enlil and Yahweh. Yahweh has throughout the Old Testament, there's a number of references to his preference for the second child. And, Enlil was the second child. Yahweh also, if you go back to the pre-Israelite culture where El and Yahweh both, emerged into the Israelite culture, Yahweh was also the second son. So I think you see a lot of commonalities with that, and just the whole thing of they're both kind of the law and order gods. They're going to do this. They're kind of the judging. Enlil was the one who wanted, was in the Sumerian stories of the flood. He didn't instigate it the way the Bible describes Yahweh doing that, but he did. He was for it. He was for letting that happen, for letting us perish because we were causing him issues. So I think there are just a lot of parallels there. So I really have concluded that was Enlil that was calling Abram out of Ur. Now, that has a lot of implications, again, because that moment formed three religions that still, are manifest on this planet today, that include about half the human population, and a lot of the conflict that we have in our world today. So that when I talk about the fact that these old stories are still playing through today's headlines, I really believe that. I really feel like these pushes and pulls and this battle, that's going on is still tied to these things. So that's kind of my answer to people when they ask me, why should I look at old books? Who cares? We're in the 21st century. It doesn't matter. It does matter because it's still influencing us, in my opinion.
What about the accuracies of the translations? Not only Zechariah's, but, I think the University of Chicago's got an online database. You can go and just search words and search the translations. How accurate do you think those are?
Well, I think the first thing you have to understand about translating languages like this, meaning pictogram languages, into a language like English, is it's an art, not a science. There's no one, I don't care how smart they are, I don't care how many classes they took in college or how many books they read, that can definitively say this is what this means in English. I mean, it's taking an idea and kind of interpreting into words. So when you have like a Michael Heiser or someone like that come out and criticize, Zechariah, I don't know that Zechariah was the best linguist, that ever existed, and I don't know that he claimed to be. I think he did grow up in his upbringing. He was in a culture that he spoke his native tongue growing up, was a language very similar to the one that he was later translating. I don't think it's just about the bits and bytes of translating and conjugating verbs and translating words. I think what Sitchin really brought to the table is that he, first of all, did something that a lot of mainstream scholars just are not willing to do in Sumeria or any of these ancient cultures, and that is he took them as kind of an eyewitness to the events in their world. He said, okay, I'm going to accept what they said. I'm not going to say it's just a myth or it couldn't be true.
Right.
He did that. The second thing I think he did, really that's important is he took the information and looked at it through space age eyes. So, as I was saying a minute ago, if if I was trying to translate ancient Sumerian for the word iPhone, I'm not going to find iPhone anywhere in the ancient Sumerian. I mean, they didn't talk about that. But if they were trying to describe something that was similar to an iPhone, that's where I think you get into the thing. And when you get people like Dr. Heiser, who are criticizing his exact translations of this, that, or something else as the premise for undermining the bigger message, which I think is really the important message here, that these people are describing technology. They're describing things that they didn't understand. And I think he took some liberties probably with the actual language, but I think he was trying to make the point that they were describing something that was not really a matter of just the words in the language. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, it does. It does. And although I'm not going to critique Heiser like he tends to critique everybody else, I have, looked at the Heiser material over the years, and it's easy to debunk or to criticize. It's far too easy. But there was one thing that he brought up, and I don't want to. Man, it's just Heiser gets under my skin. He's got a very pleasant voice. He's got a really nice way of projecting himself. He's got a great way of writing, and he's a good communicator. All right, but I just think deep down in his soul, as religious as he may be and everything else, I think he's just a bitter person. But, and Michael, if you ever listen to this in the future, you've got my email if you ever want to come on the show. But he did say one thing that flipped me out that I tended to agree with, and you've just addressed it, and that is the word gold. Okay, so that gold was never brought up anywhere. It's not anywhere in the Sumerian text. It's just never mentioned, and it's such a big part of what Sitchin writes about, the gold that is needed for Nibiru and why they were here and the mining of gold. Gold in the north of Africa, gold in the south of Africa, creating slaves and digging and panning for gold. Gold. But nowhere is it ever mentioned in the Sumerian text. So I go and I search the Chicago database, University of Chicago database, and pump that in. And sure enough, according to their database and the way that it is translated, gold is never mentioned in the Sumerian text. Now, this is where it flipped me out. Okay, it did. But this is the thing. It's how this is not an alphabet. It's not a word-for-word translation thing. And there is a certain amount of freedom here to interpretation and how you want to read these texts to get this translation done. Whatever it was that was triggering Sitchin to find this word gold in the translation to fit into the story, I don't know. I'm not part of that. But it's not like I agree with Heiser. I agree with the University of Chicago. But I also agree with Sitchin. It's not a word-for-word, letter-for-letter direct translation that we do today with written languages. It's not. There is no etymology to Sumerian text, right? It doesn't work that way. So it's an out clause for Sitchin, to be sure. But now I'm going to.
And I think it's an out clause for the established mainstream as well. Because,
it is.
They're looking for a way. Here's I think the challenge, and I would put this. You were talking earlier about this great moment we're living in. By the way, I love your opening tonight. I could have listened to you for 3 hours tonight. That would have been awesome. I think the mainstream has a stake, and when I say the mainstream, I mean mainstream religion. I mean mainstream academia. I mean mainstream, science. I mean the mainstream political establishment. They have a stake in this history that we've been given, the mainstream history that we have. They have a stake because they've been pitching it for a long time. They have a stake because there's a lot to lose for all of them if even part of what someone like Zecharia Sitchin said was correct. And what I think they're doing when someone like Heiser, and again, I agree with you. I think he's a very smart man. There are other things off of this topic that I've heard him talk about that I agree with him on. But I think that the issue is that they're looking for a way to detract from from the message and the idea that Sitchin was putting out there that, hey, there's something different to look at here, something important that we need to look at here that's not what you've been told. And I feel like, and it just may be the timing because of how old, Heiser was when he came to prominence, but Sitchin was getting old, sickly, and aging by the time Heiser came along and did the famous, challenge of him to come on Coast to Coast and
right.
And debate this, right? And I feel like, and then now, of course, he passed, and of course, now it's easy because he can't answer.
That's right.
And so I feel like there was kind of this late rush to kind of, stamp out everything he did and discredit him. And there are other ways that people have tried to discredit him as well. But I feel like it's almost like you write a book, right? And you ask someone for some feedback and they say, you missed a comma there. That's kind of what I feel like it is. It's like you're missing the bigger point.
Right. I've got my own bitter, thoughts when it comes to those that want to criticize. It takes me back, and I'll say this, and we're going to move on. But this is the truth. I mean, I was taught this at a very young age. And, critics are just unemployed professionals, right, that can't get a job. And all they can do now, because they are so bitter and jealous of those that are out there that have formed their own reality, changed their worlds for themselves, went a step further and maybe established a name, but certainly are being spoken about. Critics, they don't like that. They're bitter, right? They're just bitter. And so they just want to bring that person down instead of doing something real and constructive on their own. Go and blaze your own path. You don't like the way somebody has blazed their path? Well, then go and blaze your own. But don't blaze your own by criticizing somebody else. And I just recognize that from the word go. I just don't appreciate that. I've got friends now today that do that, and trust me, they hate that phone call from me. They do. I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? Shut up. Just shut up. So anyway, but there's something else about Sitchin. I'm going to open up your eyes here. I've never talked about this before on the show, but this is a great opportunity to do this. I'm not going to reveal my source. I'm not going to blow my cover on this, but I had a friend, a researcher of prominence, of extreme prominence, say to me that in a private conversation with Sitchin, private, he said to him, and the reason why I got this information is because we were talking, and I said, how did Sitchin get all of this volumes book? His books were not small, right? It wasn't the Weekly Reader. His books were insanely detailed, complex, comprehensive, technically written works, all of them. And where did these volumes of information come? It's too much for one book for one lifetime, but this guy, right, was writing. And he goes, okay, this is what Sitchin said to me. I asked him the same question. How are you getting all of this information? It's too much, too involved, too detailed to come out of these texts. And Sitchin said to him, I was told everything. Really? From who? Right? One day I'll talk about that. And then he died. So is there the possibility that combined with the Sumerian text, he was told what they were actually stating, so he was able to, it's like the Rosetta Stone, right? The go-between telling him what the text actually meant. He was able to go back and pull the stuff out, combined with possibly a higher source was telling him. I don't know if it was in a dream state. I don't know if it was ghostwriting. I don't know if it was channeling. I don't know if it was a download through a plasma beam in his bedroom in the middle of the night. I don't know any of that. But it is interesting how he did say that at a private moment with somebody. And it blew my mind. And it kind of answered some questions, like this thing with the word gold. Just maybe, right? And then he was able to put it all together, because there's one other thing I want to touch upon, and then we'll expand on this after the break. It's the not only the question of Nibiru and its reality or not, but when you talk about and start to assemble our solar system, our moon, Mars, Neptune, of course, Earth, and how they are situated now in the solar system and the asteroid belts and the debris that's out there and the Kuiper belt. All of this is unexplained in the scientific community. They don't know. They can't explain how Earth was formed. Mm-hmm. They can't do that. They don't know where the moon came from. Can't do it. Or any other planet for that matter. And what makes them different. They cannot do it. But Sitchin was pretty bold in the way that he described everything, with planets colliding and different positions in orbit and moons and planetary bodies and debris fields and what that. It was a pretty extreme thing. But I got to tell you, and I mean this, Sitchin did a better job of explaining the creation of our solar system than any scientist out there.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I heard you drink, but as you, that was a loud gulp, by the way, that went out over the ether. But don't you agree with that? There is no satisfying explanation on how everything was created here. Sitchin certainly pretty boldly put it out there, and it's kind of hard to knock his ideas down.
Well, we talked about a few minutes ago about, maybe, I don't want to say the darker side, but maybe the side that's kind of working against us, what I would call the Enlilites, and I think that's kind of in line with what Sitchin had said.
Right.
Remember, there was also the brother and the side of the Anunnaki and perhaps other, extraterrestrials that has an interest in helping us and did so, numerous times throughout the various texts. I mean, there's numerous instances where even in the Bible where it gets sort of twisted. If you follow the whole Enlil thing as Yahweh, then you realize that the person, the entity that's trying to help us in Genesis may be, by giving us information, which oddly the God didn't want us to have. I mean, it's clear that someone is trying to help us along while other people are trying to make this very, non-transparent, very difficult for us to unravel. So I think that's entirely possible that he was getting some sort of information from somewhere.
Now, we're gonna head towards a break. When we come back, let's go back with the origins of the Anunnaki from the beginning. Those timelines. We'll work our way forward. We can obviously get everything tied together by the top of the hour to the creation of man and how that fit into the myth and also in the timeline of it all. Let's do that when we come back. Our guest tonight is Ray Davis, and as promised, this is an evening of Anunnaki. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go back, Lee Tappy.
Hi, I'm Matt Ray for U.S. Gold Bureau. I cover the market daily. No matter how strong it gets or what long-term predictions say, you can count on one thing as certain. There will be another crash. It will affect your assets. And when it happens, wouldn't you rather be 2 weeks or even 2 months ahead of the curve? Well, Wall Street insiders have been quietly converting their assets into gold for the last few years. Now it's your turn. Buying gold and silver is easier than buying stocks with the U.S. Gold Bureau's Investor Guide. It's free, and you learn how to buy precious metals in or out of an IRA or 401k retirement plan. Your investment's shipped directly to your home and is 100% insured and guaranteed. You control your investments and shelter them against the stock market, politics, and unknown threats. Act while your dollar is still worth something. Call U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD. U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD, 800-885-GOLD. Call today.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Ray Davis, author, talking about his 2 books. And, well, Anunnaki Awakening, Revelation, and The Power to Be You, 416 Empowering Thoughts for Daily Life. And what I wanted to jump into now, Ray, is this. Aside from the complete story, and that includes the mining for gold and atmospheres of Nibiru and protecting planets and stuff. The one thing that I find the most intriguing about the entire story is the creation of man and the timeline of this. Look, I know it is an extreme thought for many to wrap their head around. But I firmly believe that Homo sapien and us today, we have been here for 150,000, maybe 200,000 years. There's some timelines now that may push that back 10 or 20,000 years. But the fact is that we just appeared. And the story and the way that it fits with the Anunnaki answers a lot of questions, and it's a very simple way of applying this. It's an extreme view, but is that one of the things that you have taken away from the story?
Absolutely. You know, I'm not even sure it's an extreme view. It's extreme compared to what other people have had to compare it to in the past. And I mean, we have, 2 mainstream views, right, that are always at battle with each other. It's a zero-sum game. No one can give any ground. It's the creation evolution thing, right? And I really missed the late Lloyd Pye because he was so good at describing this. And I posted something in the F2B hashtag here a moment ago that I've used before to kind of talk about this intervention theory, this idea that we were mixed. If you look at us, and if any of you ever watched that show where they put people out in the woods, a couple or whatever, and they have to survive for 20 days, with nothing. If you look at this guy in the picture that I posted, he has poor eyesight. His skin cuts easily. His skin burns. He has no hair to keep him warm. This sort of thing. This guy did not evolve for any period of time without the tools of civilization. We were built for civilization, and so there's no question that. If you even hear mainstream science talk about how we modern humans emerged suddenly and they can't figure out how that happened, it's pretty obvious. There was a more primitive being here that I'm agnostic as far as if it was evolution, creation, however you want to say that being got here.
Right.
And you have these gods who came and mixed themselves with us and made a more advanced being. There's no doubt in my mind that is not only feasible but probable, because you look at this being, he couldn't have evolved. If he did evolve, from a common ancestor, then I guess I would ask why. And I've had these discussions online, and it usually starts a Twitter fight, right, or something. But we've gone to the moon, we built skyscrapers, we've done all these things, while the other branches of that supposed tree are still basically living very similar to how that common ancestor lived. We got some sort of a boost, some sort of a jump start. It makes total sense. And when Sitchin comes along with this idea that our essence was mixed with a more advanced being, that fits the bill of what even science is saying happened, that we emerged suddenly, we're unprecedented, we've shot forward from there in a way that no other animal on this planet has done. So it all fits together for me.
Yeah, and Lloyd Pye, and I couldn't agree with you more. He's the one person that I didn't get a chance to interview, and just missed him too as well. I mean, just by weeks, but he does sum it up so well and elegantly too. But there's one point that Lloyd makes that. And I have gotten into so many debates about this, but here we have Homo sapien with 46 chromosome pairs. Primates have 48. But yet we advanced and blew past them with, we should have had 56, 58, 60, chromosome pairs. That would make sense, right? But we don't. We have 46. So you can't even really compare us to primates because of just that reason there. And evolving off of them doesn't make any sense. There isn't anything really to relate us to primates other than, 10 fingers, 10 toes. And we kind of look similar, kind of. But all of the other primates were superior to us. Strength. Right? There's so many things, that vision and hearing and so many things that made them superior to us. They can kill us very easily. So can lions and tigers and elephants and hippopotamus and sharks and things that we just can't compete with. But all of them that should have dominated the species on this planet have not evolved. Nobody in millions and millions and millions and millions of years. They are exactly the same. We are the only ones out of nowhere that can laugh, cry, talk, humor, language, communication, and turn around and do the things that we have done when we didn't have any of that before we popped up. And it's a strange thing to look at. It is truly a miracle. It's a phenomenon, unless it was deliberate. Now, if it was deliberate, who did it? Right? And that God, that creator, whoever it is, I don't know. But it seems like they had the intelligence to go in and snip our DNA and alter us to create us and make us what we are today. That's the only way that we possibly can look at it. And the Anunnaki fits all of the criteria to do just that.
And I get into this in the book, and as I said, it's a novel, it's fiction, but I did a lot of research, and the reason we have 2 fewer chromosomes than the other primates is because our second and third chromosome are fused together. And I go into some detail in the book. I've even had a couple of scientists who read the book who have said, "Wow, how'd you know all that?" It's like I researched it.
Right.
But they're merged together, they're fused together. Now the argument is supposedly that could happen in evolution theoretically, but it would be really hard to get it the way it is. And if you look at what the second and third chromosomes are, it's all those things you just talked about. All those advantages we have are tied to that chromosome, that second and third chromosome. And we have what's called the junk DNA, right? All this stuff, they're not sure what it is and what it does. Well, I would argue that is, and I talk about this in the book, that's how they adjust the level of hybrids that we're talking about. I think we're a certain level of hybrid, but I think that there are other entities, and we may not get to it tonight, but related to the running of this planet, and maybe the elite classes, not just now, but even going back into history, may be a higher level of hybrid. And I think they were able to tune it up using what we're calling junk DNA by turning little pieces of that on and making different parts of the RNA manifest as physical form. So it's intriguing.
Now, when we were created, did the Anunnaki modify us? Some form of us was already on this planet, or did they bring us with them?
I believe something was already on this planet, and I also happen, by the way, to believe, along with Graham Hancock and others, that there are perhaps even more ancient than this go around we have right now, indigenous advanced civilizations that have been on Earth previously.
Right.
And I think we're finding with Göbekli Tepe and a number of other places, we're finding evidence of those things right now. But for this go around that we're talking about right now, and of course this gets into the stuff that Michael Cremo talks about devolution and evolution and the whole Jain and Hindu, vision of this cycle that goes on where things evolve and then they are destroyed and they're recreated.
Right.
My thought is that these beings were here, meaning the hominids or whatever you would like to call them that were here, and that the Anunnaki came and merged their technology. And I think that's what the text, even in its plainest, regardless of who's translating it, I think that's what it's saying, is that they mixed themselves with us to get with I keep saying with us, with what they found here, to get a creature that was just smart enough to do the things that they didn't want to do, but not really smart enough to get onto the game of how I think the planet continues to this day to be run. So
now, and what about the question of this? They were creating us, just like you just said, to be smart enough to understand the instructions, right? Go and mine gold. And don't argue with us. Smart enough to do that, but not smart enough to do a slave uprising, right? And fight the Anunnaki back. Because what I find intriguing here is that apparently, and I want you to address this, there were only hundreds of Anunnaki on this planet. There weren't millions. But yet there was a larger amount of us created as slaves. So why didn't we do an uprising? Or did the Anunnaki split before that was possible?
Well, I think, and again, I pull a lot of these strings in the book, and I get into some of this, and the main character that is kind of driving the revelation of all of this going on. That's why it's Anunnaki Revelation. Is Inanna. So she's kind of on the Inkyite side, and she's realized that she has to expose this. And in my story, she's dying, and she wants to get this exposed because she's always had a kind of a soft spot for humanity and wants to expose all of this that's going on. I think that they were very brutal with us, to be honest. I mean, look at all these ancient cultures. The word fear of God, that phrase comes up all over the place. I think people who rebelled or dealt with harshly Let's just put it that way. And people were afraid to rebel against them. And when the Anunnaki pulled away, as a lot of people believe, or I would say, or went away, as a lot of people believe, or pulled into the background, as I would argue, and left, human hybrids in charge, I think that's why we still have to this day this idea of religion being used as a fear factor to keep humanity in control. I think that goes way back to what the Anunnaki did. And the fact that we know we're going to die, right? And there's that fear of dying, I think, and that we're going to be judged, and all these things that are all these themes that still go through our culture today keep us in line. We're afraid, and we're not given information to battle that fear because we're not told what's really going on, why we're really here, how we really got here.
Well, and then I have another conundrum, right? A serious conundrum with this, because I believe that this is a very strong possibility on how we were placed on this planet. And I'm talking about the Anunnaki. But if their scientists were so advanced and so brilliant and were able to do things like fuse the chromosomes pairs together and create us and do all of that, snip on DNA is a crazy technology, right? And to create us. And I agree. But yet there's all of the problems with our DNA and our genetics that are there that we inherit that could have been fixed. Why did they deliberately make sure that we had, a couple of thousand diseases and problems that are there today that aren't in other species on this planet?
Absolutely, and that last thing you just said is really important. And Lloyd Pye used to talk about this. He said if you're, I think that what's the motivation for them to make us perfect and healthy and well, right? I mean, if first they don't want a threat to them, they don't want an uprising, so we have to constantly deal with our health because of all these things. And second, if you're making a slave, almost a quote from Lloyd Pye back, if you're making a slave, you really don't care. Right? You don't care if you get it exactly right. They just wanted something that would survive, because the story is they tried and tried and tried to get this right. And they had ones that came out that couldn't talk. They had ones that came out that weren't, right in a number of different ways until they finally got us. If we survived and we could reproduce and get what they wanted, that's all they were really looking for, at least initially. So there wasn't really an incentive to do state of the art. It was really just get something that works, basically, right? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, sort of.
Do you think that the Anunnaki are still here in some form?
Absolutely. Every time I watch Ancient Aliens, that the famous questions at the beginning, and the last one is, will they ever come back? I would say, how do we know they ever left?
Right.
And I think even Sitchin, kind of said that he thought they left, and that there's evidence of that. What I believe has happened, Jimmy, and this probably is a whole other conversation for another night, but I think in the book I talk about what I call Earth Inc., that the Anunnaki are still kind of running things from afar through what we might call in our modern terms, what I call in the book the cadre, what we might call the cabal, or whatever you want to call them here on Earth, that the structures that keep humanity limited, that keep us, face to the ground, knees on the ground, not looking to the stars, not taking what I would call our rightful place in the galaxy among the other sentient beings, is all about this paradigm that was created way back then and continues to be pushed through all of our institutions today that keeps us limited. And I think that's by design. And I think it's so I don't think they ever left. I think they pulled back. And if you even go into like Joseph Campbell's work and things like that, you see where you have these ancient cults in the Near East, where every so often related to the cycles of the solar system and things like that, whole courts, kings, horses, all the guards, the whole court was killed and buried together, and a new king was chosen, that kind of thing. And I think initially, what I surmise in the book is that initially those sorts of safeguards were to put in place so there wouldn't be any rebellion once the Anunnaki pulled back, from some kings getting the idea that they might try to do things on their own.
Right.
But I think eventually there was some balance struck to where the Anunnaki are getting what they want out of Earth. And I would argue that they're not monolithic, right? I think there are Anunnaki who, as in my book, Inanna and Enki, who are trying to help us, who are trying to expose this, who have done a number of things through our history to try to help uncover this to us. But there's a very strong push, a very strong cover to everything that's keeping this from blowing off. But I agree with what you said earlier in the show that we're getting really close to blowing it off.
It's something's about to break. I mean, I really feel that the dam is about to burst. There's too many things happening all at the same time, and I mean this. They are overlapping. There are things that, when we talk about tinfoil hats and conspiracy theory and fringe alternative views that now are the mainstream views, and our extreme views are are more scientific based now, right? It's totally bizarre to me. And the world itself is listening to the scientific community, but they've been listening to us for years and watching the movies, and to watch these roles literally flip-flop. And what is bizarre to me, Ray, is, I know it sounds simple, but something like night vision goggles, right? Night vision goggles is an advancement of technology that we didn't have just a couple of decades ago. Now, go on to Amazon, get yourself a pair, go to Bearing Optics, get the new Jimmy Church model, right? Night vision goggles, go out in the backyard and look up into the sky and see things that you could not possibly have ever seen 10, 20, 30 years ago. But that's technology converging in our community, in the alternative community. And then you go over to the scientific and engineering side, Silicon Valley and quantum mechanics and quantum computers and parallel worlds. Wait a minute here. That was supposed to be our subject, right? And now it is theirs. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence all the way around that's showing us that the dam is about to burst. Let's talk about. Let me look at the clock here. Okay, we got about 5 minutes, and then we'll pick this up on the backside, which is Nibiru. Now, if we are looking at, different numbers have been thrown around, whether it's 3,600 year orbit or 3,000 or 4, it doesn't matter to me. It's a long time. If we go back throughout history and we look at some significant cosmic events that have happened, such as the Star of Bethlehem, right? You have that on the night that Jesus was born. We have that. We have other cosmic events that have happened in the night sky throughout the past that have been documented in history. If one of those events, any one of them that has been documented, ties to Nibiru, well, no matter how we look at it, Nibiru would be 1,000 years away today, or 1,500 years away. It's not 1 year away. I don't think. I've tried to. So no matter where we put it in the timeline, it's way out there, and it is not it's not going to be next month. It's not going to be next year. It's not going to be 10 years from now. That's my take. What's your take on where Nibiru possibly could be in its orbit?
So I think I've seen Lloyd Pye again talk about this. I think it's distant. It's not near, and I think a lot of this alarmism around this is not helpful. And I know by even saying that, I'm probably going to have people say that I'm trying to cover something up or something. I'm not. And honestly, in the book, I kind of pass on this topic. I make Nibiru actually a planet that orbits. I don't know if you're familiar with the binary star theory.
Absolutely.
There's a guy out in California, I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, who talks about this.
Walter Cruttenden. That's
him. I kind of go that route with this, that Nibiru is actually around our twin star that we have not yet, and Nana tells Maria that we've not yet understood that we are a twin star and that it's around that, and that's how it is. So I kind of cop out in the book. my personal view is that it is out there. And the reason I did that is I feel it was more important to focus on what these beings, who they were and what they've done and what's still going on in our culture today than to get into that whole debate about Nibiru. But I do believe it's out in the solar system somewhere. I do believe that it's probably caused havoc at times in our history, but I don't have any reason to believe, based on anything that I've seen, that it's anywhere close to us right now. But I think what's interesting is for people who deny that it's there is the mainstream sure keeps coming up with different readings over many, many decades now, that something's there, no, it's not. Something's there, no, it's not. Something's there. So, it's definitely out there. As far as to how close it comes, or, even is it still on a trajectory that causes the kind of issues that Sitchin talks about? I don't know if that's even accurate or not. I feel like I haven't studied all those issues enough to really understand that, but I don't feel like it's imminent.
Well, I think that there is something there. And when we look at some of the stuff that has come out of MIT and Caltech over the last year and 2 years, the big press release was last year, and I had Walter Cruttenden on the show to specifically address this. I was excited for Walter's research, not so much about the binary thing, but star system, in as much as there is some type of planetary body out there that is messing with Neptune and Uranus, causing some wobbles out there, also possibly with Pluto, and that the only thing that can explain this is a large planetary body way out there somewhere that is causing this interference. Now, to have, again, back to my original point, to have science come in and start to solidly back up some of these theories about a Planet X, Nibiru, and the Anunnaki with mathematics speaks volumes for some of these theories that have been put out there for so long. So what is it? Don't know. Why can't we see it? It's so far out there that the sun isn't reflecting off of it. This isn't a star that is self-illuminated. This is a planetary body that is going to be dark, and you're not going to see it unless it's close enough for our sun to reflect off of it. And that's simply put, that is the only explanation that we have here. And when it does appear, it's going to appear suddenly. There is a reason why meteors and other debris out there that we don't see it, because the sun isn't reflecting off of it. These are black objects. You have to see them specifically with very, very high-tech equipment, but you're not going to see it with the telescope. But that being said, then we have all of the Nibiru hunters that are out there that are posting videos and images of crazy stuff in the sky that is being noted out there. What do you think it is that they are seeing? And is it just digital anomalies being captured with these cameras?
Well, yeah, I think it's a mix of all those things. I mean, I think there are certainly, I've taken pictures before. I love taking pictures of the sun, and unless you have a really, really, really good camera, a lot of times you're going to get lens flares and things like that. And I've posted pictures of people say, oh, look, there's Nibiru or Blue Kachina or something like that. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are lens flares, but I do think that there have been some, was it Marshall Masters, I think, the guy has brought a number of things forward, the telescope down on the volcano and in Central America a few years ago that was capturing stuff. Here's what I think. I think that there is a lot of stuff going on in our solar system that probably there are people who know about it. But again, we're not really told everything. I don't know why, not just on this issue, but on so many other issues, they insist on treating us like children. But there are a lot of things going on in our solar system. I just don't have, and I don't know what it would take to even prove to me that there's some incoming body that's about to cause this havoc, because the predictions have been made a number of times and nothing has happened, and I'm not saying that means nothing ever would happen, but I think it's challenging to see the predictions over and over again and then nothing happens. That doesn't mean that there's nothing out there. It doesn't mean that some of these images aren't legitimate and we shouldn't look at them. I definitely am open-minded to all of that. But
we got to take a break right here, Ray. Ran it right up to the end, but I still got to pay the bills. This is Fade to Black. More with Ray Davies. This is a full Anunnaki evening on Fade to Black right after this. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Very simple, at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Come and hang out with us. You can follow Ray. I think it's Ray. It's Anunnaki Awakening, right?
It's at Anunnaki Awake. The reason is Twitter doesn't allow long enough name to have awakening. So
okay, well there you go, and it will say Ray, so you can follow. You can follow Ray. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? The Sandbox every single night, and you hang out there often. It's pretty amazing, this family and what goes on with this show every single night, isn't it?
Absolutely is. Great people, great ideas. I mean, I learn something every time I look. So,
well, that's the reason right there. If I pull that off, success. You know, and the amount of people that listen to the show after the fact, right? They'll listen to it in the archives or YouTube or iHeartRadio, wherever they go to check out the archives, and they hear us talking about, you know, the chat rooms or the email or Twitter going on in real time. They don't have a clue until they listen to the show live and see what goes on with this great audience. But it is so entertaining for me every night to watch these conversations just evolve, and everybody is bouncing ideas off of each other and listening to the guest and then arguing and fighting, and just like any other successful family Thanksgiving dinner, it goes down every night right here.
That's how freedom works. Right?
That's what, isn't that? I guess so. But I do love it. It is just awesome. So now back to when it comes to, if you are going to go out on a limb here and be somebody that is going to be some kind of prophet or predict the future or say that some celestial event is going to happen, you better deliver. And quite frankly, it's never happened. And I feel bad. It's great radio. It's entertaining to listen to. But if you're going to do that, something better happen, or your reputation is completely muddied. And there are plenty of out there that have been not only on Coast to Coast, but many shows that have predicted things that never happened. Look at December 21st, 2012, right? How many times has there been somebody out in the Midwest with a couple of hundred people, you know, talking about something's about to happen, so let's go and get a community together because next year it's all over, and nothing ever happens. Well, you better have your ducks in a row with this. And with Nibiru and Planet X, I don't listen to them anymore. I really don't. When it happens, we're not going to know. We're not going to see it. We're not going to see it until it's too late.
This is why I shied away from this in the book, because I don't know the answer to where it is and what it is. I mean, I'm as intrigued. I'm watching the Planet Nine stuff, and I've, you know, the stuff back in 81 and the stuff in 2006 when they thought they had found him with the, you know, all those things. So I watch it and I pay attention to it and I find it interesting, but I didn't want to get hung up on there because I think there's bigger issues that are affecting us every day in our life related to all of this that I wanted to focus on in the book more than where is Nibiru. And I was worried if I got into that in the book too much, even my personal view on it, that it would take away from that. So that's why I kind of stayed away.
Now, exactly. Now let's talk about the wars that were going on back then, and Enki, Enlil, Marduk, Mars, planet Earth, solar, interstellar craziness going on. Do we take that literal?
Well, I start from the premise of why wouldn't we? I mean, I think we found, you know, going back to von Daniken and others have found evidence all over the world. We have, you know, deserts that are you know, have glass that you know, supposedly could only happen from, you know, nuclear explosions. I mean, if you really start digging into the Indian texts, I mean, you know, what you see on Ancient Aliens is really just scratching the surface of the stuff that's in those texts. It's amazing. I mean, information that would have had no reason to exist until the computer age, you know, that's in books that are, you know, in texts that are 5,000-6,000 years old. It just is crazy stuff. So I have no reason to doubt that those things are. I think you even get remnants, and you know, we haven't really gotten into this too much, but you know, Genesis, you know, if you look at the first, you know, 11 chapters or so up to Abram in Genesis, what what I believe you're seeing, and I think there's a lot of evidence for this, is you're seeing the Sumerian texts, but you're seeing them removed by several thousand years, and you're seeing them 1,000 miles across the desert where these stories were taken with them. And by the time you get to Genesis, you see things like Sodom and Gomorrah even. You're seeing, I think, remnants of those stories that are much more spelled out in some of the Sumerian texts and even in some of the Indian texts about technological wars, nuclear wars, things like that were happening back there. And I guess I would ask again, because I know the mainstream makes the assumption that this is all myth and couldn't have been because it doesn't fit with my paradigm, but why would we doubt something like that when we have these ancient people describing these things in such a detail and we recognize it? And that's what I meant about Sitchin earlier, taking the space age eyes. We need to take our eyes today, what we know about the world today, and look at what they're describing and ask, how would they know that?
Well, and then for me, it goes one step deeper. I go out and look in the sky all the time. I cannot tell one star from another. I can't tell a star from a planet. I can't do that. I have programs and software that will tell me what's going on, but I can't, and I'm impressed with it. But if you go back, 3,000 years, 4,000 years, 5,000 years ago, where these civilizations that obviously, allegedly, didn't have telescopes or a way to, but they could differentiate and knew about pure astronomy, and they knew what planets were, and they knew what the sun was, and they could tell these celestial. I am blown away by that. There's nothing that makes me understand how they knew that, because I know that there's planets out there. I know that we have a solar. I know that I can look out into the sky and look at the Milky Way and look at the constellations and pull up and get it. But how on God's green earth did some ancient civilization know about planet count? How is that possible? I mean, how could they look up and know what a planet was versus the difference between that and a star? It doesn't make any sense unless somebody was giving them this information so that they could understand it and comprehend it and then document it, not only in text, but in carvings and wall art. It blows my mind. And the only way that you can fit that puzzle together is somebody was quite simply telling them exactly what was going on out there.
How would they know that? Now, the mainstream will make up, and this is what I think is unscientific about the mainstream sometimes. They say, let's be scientific, right? Let's look at the evidence and logic and all of that and figure these things out. But they'll make up a story like, well, they must have been contaminated. They don't know that they were contaminated by, anyone, in modern times that gave them this information. And the evidence seems to be that they've had this ritual around these stars and this knowledge for at least 1,000 years. So, again, I mean, the evidence in so many of these things points in the direction that doesn't fit a mainstream narrative. It's kind of like, our ancient ancestors, when it comes to whether or not the gods were, the quote unquote gods, I call them gods, small g, because I think a lot of them were extraterrestrials. The belief in them, right, is explained away as these were unsophisticated people who needed to have these gods to represent forces of nature that they didn't understand and things like that. But when it comes time to build the Great Pyramid, all of a sudden there's sophisticated engineers and scientists who can build something like the Great Pyramid and engineer that. I mean, you can't have it both ways. And the logic over and over again in all of these cases, to me, if you're really following a scientific method and really willing to open your eyes and look at evidence, says there's something going on here. And the mainstream just, by and large, I mean, there are exceptions for sure, but by and large, still poo-poos it, ridicules it, doesn't want to look at it. Stan Friedman has his famous four things of a skeptic, right? I mean, one of them is don't show me the evidence, I've already made up my mind. And that's kind of how it is. There's not a real examination of the evidence of how these stones get someplace up on a mountain, tens of miles away from where they were quarried. I mean, it's just crazy. There's so much. People say, "Show me the evidence." It's all over the place. Sorry, I was ranting there a little bit. But.
No, and you're right about that. And one of the things that when Graham or Randall Carlson or some of these other seriously great researchers, I think that they are reticent to. They want to imply, but they are reticent to. They stop short of saying there was an ancient civilization. There was, just maybe when we discuss Göbekli Tepe, when they were on the Joe Rogan show, they had the opportunity there to go. I almost said something I shouldn't have said. This is a family show. They had the opportunity to put their cojones on the table. And simply state some things, that there was a higher technical civilization that was not Stone Age man, that had the technology to quarry. No, that there was a civilization that had high technology that built Göbekli Tepe. They fall short of that. They still want to, and they do it for good reason. They want to try to join hands with historians and archaeologists. I get that, and they do, and geologists, and they want to try to merge the two communities together. But I disagree with that. I firmly believe that there was something back there that was of extreme technology, as advanced as we are today, or maybe even more advanced. They just went bye-bye somehow, somewhere. And it happens, and it's happened a lot, time and time again. We cannot deny a couple of things. There are no dinosaurs today. They were wiped out. Owned the planet, tens, dozens of feet tall, huge teeth that just carnivorous, right? They dominated this. They are gone. There is, and so if that is the case, I can't tell you how many times, countless times, that we could have come and gone on this planet, and just quite simply, maybe somebody survived through at some point and was teaching somebody. That is a possibility. It doesn't fit directly back into the Anunnaki and the Sumerian text, but Göbekli Tepe didn't build itself. It quite simply did not. And Stone Age man, whether we're looking at Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal, 30,000 years ago, did not build Göbekli Tepe. That is out of the possibility. But yet, Stone Age man, no tools, none. Chicken bones, yes, but no tools. Quarried those rocks and brought those in and built Göbekli Tepe. Stone Age man, and you want to tell me that I'm not giving Stone Age man enough credit? That's where I have to call BS. And Graham, as much as I love him, and I do, but he falls short of stating those opinions, and I don't know why. But again, I think that he wants to try to merge the two communities together, and trying to back off.
Yeah, and I love Graham Hancock too. I've read his books. I followed him for years, in many ways, and I've noted exactly what you're saying. I mean, that he does want, and I think there's a place for that, because here's the thing: the mainstream isn't going to look at all this evidence. I mean, they've made it clear they're just not going to. They're not going to accept it. It doesn't fit the paradigm. They're not going to evaluate. And I think he's trying very hard to build from their own perspective, like the scientific credibility to say that, you should look at this. I think for people like me, it's more like, and it sounds like you maybe a little bit, it's like, it's all there. Why don't we just say what it is? And why don't we somehow get them to see, to open their eyes and look at the evidence, because that's what they claim the method is to look at evidence. But it's not the method when it comes to this kind of topic.
Now, there's one other thing that we kind of glossed over, but I have been talking about this more and more lately, which is a linear timeline, what is a year, what is a day, what is, so forth, to history and to prehistory. Because the dating of things gets clouded. Once we get past 0, right, and we go backwards to 20 BC and 100 BC, you have the Greek and Roman calendars where we can line things up. We have some things going on in Asia, but quite simply, there was no calendar system. So when we're looking at the Sumerian text, and we even look at the hieroglyphics in Egypt, and the way that they were timing things, when we get to 3000 BC, it is guesswork. 1000 BC, guesswork at best on what year we are actually talking about and how long that time actually is. There was no number. There was no dating system in place. So I'll argue with any historian if he wants to say, well, it was at 2000 BC. Based on what? Based on what? Tell me what you're basing it on, and then we'll talk about this 2000 BC, because there was no calendar system. Now, when we get into the Sumerian text and we are talking 400,000 years, 300,000 years, 500,000 years. We're talking about an extraordinary length of time. How accurate shall we place this, and how much faith do we put into the Sumerian text to talk about these extraordinarily huge chunks of time?
Well, it's a challenge to think about that. I think what's clear is that the Anunnaki have very extended lifespans, and I would argue maybe even longer than a few thousand years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. So I think to them, this wasn't a lot of time, but we do have this huge chunk of time between when, supposedly they came to Earth at the beginning, and where our history picks up, where the Sumerian culture, the cradle of civilization, quote unquote, is buoyed up by them apparently. I don't think we should put a lot of emphasis on exactly how much time, because I don't think we really, like you say, I don't think we really have any way to measure it. I think at that point we're really relying on that the Sumerians or some of these ancient cultures were getting this information from the Anunnaki or these other beings themselves. I think that's the only reference point we would have to say that it was this long or that long. And when you look at what Michael Tellinger's doing in Africa right now and uncovering some of this stuff, it's clear that there was this long prehistory of this stuff going on before we emerged, 6,000 years ago, and between the Tigris and the Euphrates, of this culture kind of popping up out of nowhere. There was this long prehistory of something going on that we don't know about, how long it was, or what went on during that period of time. I think we get bits and pieces of it in the ancient texts, but I think it's kind of lost to memory right now, other than the fact that we were given that information probably at some point in time.
Have you started to learn transcribing the Sumerian text?
I have not. It's an interest of mine. I haven't put the time into it really. I definitely have looked at a lot of it, and looked at the different translations and how people are doing it. At one point in time, I was very interested in Sanskrit, and I was looking at doing that, but I've never done it with the Sumerian texts.
And what about hieroglyphics? Have you thought about that challenge? Because I am, just so you know, I'm trying to get through some of this. I want to understand it. I have so much sculpture and things that that are sitting around the house, and they're beautiful pieces. I have no idea what's on them, right?
Agreed. And I think this is, this gets back to what we were talking about earlier about the translations themselves. But I mean, a lot of us are, and hey, I'll admit it. I mean, we're reliant on Sitchin and Heiser and everybody else who does know something about this, who has translated this stuff, right? And we are reliant on them. I mean, so we're not, the information we're getting is I would say it's primary source, but it's certainly not primary language. So we're relying on those translations and comparing this to that and trying to draw the picture. So yeah, it's a weakness in the entire thing for sure.
Now, what can in your second book, where you are discussing the empowering thoughts for daily life that you have extrapolated out of all of this research and information. Today, how can we do just that? What have we learned from the Anunnaki?
Well, I should say before I started the whole Anunnaki thing and writing this book, I started down that path, and that was kind of actually after I died. I spent a number of years in kind of the proverbial wilderness, I suppose, kind of going through the Campbell's hero, journey sort of, and so trying to explore who I was and all that sort of thing, and what I came up with, and what I noted as I began looking at this is that one of the things that keeps humanity down and prevents us from getting beyond what I think is a conscious deception, at least on the part of some, to kind of keep us, keep our history, our knowledge of who we are. David Icke talks about these things beautifully, about who we really are, hidden. People feel disempowered. They feel hopeless in a lot of ways. Hey, we all do it. We do things, a job or something like that maybe isn't our passion in life, but we do it to pay the bills or whatever. We do things. We kind of go through life, and as we move through it, we lose hope, and we lose our dreams, we lose our goals, and I think it's so important for us to realize that we're not powerless in this. And again, I think David Icke just does. I love the way he talks about this kind of stuff. What they're so scared of, what they're trying to keep us from, in my opinion, is the potential that's right within us. And we have not even begun, I don't think, to harness that. And so I think as a rudimentary step that I had to go through in my own process, and that I think a lot of other people would still benefit from, is just changing just the way you think, and realizing that if you look at things a little more optimistically, that you see your potential, you acknowledge the amazingness and other. I mean, when I see the political stuff that's going on today, and especially when you get on social media and all the fighting back and forth and the name calling, and we've forgotten we're human beings. We've forgotten that every one of those people that you're yelling at and calling names and calling stupid and this and that and something else is an amazing 1 in a trillion miracle, and until we can get our grounding back on that of who we are and who all the people around us are, I don't think we can solve the challenges that have been posed by this deception in history that started with the Anunnaki, and I would argue again goes right into today's headlines. I think that's one of the ways we're being kept down, and if we would just get there, that would change everything. I mean, really, I think it's as simple and as hard as enough of us, a critical mass of us, flipping the switch on the way we look at things and the way we look at ourselves. But we're constantly fed. If you turn on CNN or Fox or MSNBC or any of this stuff, you're constantly fed these narratives that are disempowering, they're dividing, and we'll never get there. If we keep listening to that stuff, we'll never get there.
We're going to take a break right here, Ray, but I am going to ask you for a little bit of overtime. Can we do that for the Fade or Nots tonight?
Absolutely.
I kind of feel like Johnny Carson. You remember when Johnny would bring out the comedian, right? And then either he asked you over to the couch to sit down or he did not. And I get that opportunity. Would you like to come over and sit on the couch and do a little overtime with us?
I would absolutely.
Let's do that right now. We're going to take a break. Our guest tonight, Ray Davis. It's so cool to have one of our family on the show tonight. Fade or Not, author. Tonight we're discussing the Anunnaki. But you've heard Ray say a few times tonight, when I died. And I wanted to save it for a little bit later. We're going to do that right now in overtime. And we're going to find out what Ray was talking about 25 years ago. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, what up, y'all? Sugar Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. GetTheT.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
I'm Matt Ray with America's First News. We all know if you're planning a trip, you should shop and compare, right? But why endlessly search the web when you don't have to? Flight Services helps you find the lowest possible airfare. Talk directly to a travel pro right now for the best deals available. Their travel pros have additional discounts not found on websites, and Flight Services provides 24-hour customer service. Call toll-free 844-845-9944. That's 844-845-9944.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring two Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The two full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, little overtime tonight with our guest, Ray Davis. Full Anunnaki evening. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple enough. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox, or you can join in on one of our chat rooms over at KGRA or Spreaker. And now, Ray tonight mentioned 3 or 4 times when I died. Now, I wanted to save it for later, but this is what we do with live radio. It just got out of control, the conversation, and I didn't get a chance to get around to it. So let's do that now, Ray. 25 years ago, what happened?
So I didn't actually die, but I should have been dead. I think I should have maybe been a little clear on that. But so there's a little mystical piece of this, but what happened was I had graduated from college. In my life, I was in a dark place, just being really completely honest. I was in a dark place. Career wasn't going the way I wanted to at that point. And I just wasn't comfortable yet kind of figuring out where I wanted to go in life in a lot of ways. And I got sick. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't eat, couldn't drink, started losing weight, got down. I'm 5'9". I got down below 100 pounds. I was skin and bones.
Wow.
Went to the hospital once, was there for about 3 weeks. They pumped me up full of IV and sent me home again, wound up back there again, worse off a couple weeks later. And eventually they determined that I had Addison's disease, which is a very rare autoimmune disease. John Kennedy had it. In fact, they kept it hidden from the public that he had it because at that time there was no treatment for it. But I have had that, but it took them, I don't know, gosh, it wasn't the first thing they looked for. We went on for weeks and weeks and weeks of me in the hospital like this, not being able to eat, not being able to drink, losing weight. And I was in so much pain. I can't even describe the pain that I was in when I went in the hospital that first night. And I was just screaming out to whoever was listening that I'm ready to go. I want out. I'm done. I don't want to be here. And, I was in bad shape, so I can't vouch for what I think I saw, what I think I experienced. But I remember there was a kind of a light up in the corner of the room,
right?
And basically, it was intuitive to me. It wasn't. I didn't hear a voice or see anyone or anything like that. It was intuitive to me that it was not my time to go. That I was going to have to get through this. I was going to have to pull through, and that I had still things here that I needed to do. And so I was blocked. So I didn't have an out-of-body experience or actually die. I just was very, very sick. And later on, I had one of the best endocrinology doctors in the Midwest tell me that he had never seen anyone with electrolyte levels that I had who was alive. So,
but you said that you wanted to go. Were you feeling suicidal, or is it because of the sickness you were just or the illness? That you're just, I'm tired, I'm done with this, or were you suicidal?
No, I never thought about taking my own life, but I was just wasting away. I couldn't eat, couldn't drink, couldn't swallow. The pain was just, I can't even describe it. And so I just wanted out, but I never would have. I think even then, certainly now, I have this belief, but then I just would never have thought about taking my life, but I wanted out. And I was like verbalizing that, saying, I'm ready to go. Just take me. I'm ready to get out of here. And, it was just excruciating. And it took weeks and weeks to figure out what was going on and get me on the proper medication to get things squared away. And, I've been doing that for 28 years now. So
how long were you in the hospital?
The second time, about 4 months.
Oh, holy crap.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of psychological outfall from this whole situation, and so a lot of that was spent trying to get myself back together because I literally almost died, and I really felt when I encounter people today that are at rock bottom, I understand because I've been there,
right,
and that's why I do believe, and I'm not perfect. I have my issues and I get frustrated with things and I lose my positivity. Sometimes I have to get myself back on track. But I do really believe that there is something to this idea that you can pull something from within and pull yourself out of that situation, pull yourself to a better place, because that's really what I feel like I did.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in creating your own reality.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And when you do that, and I've done it a few times in my life where I've seriously just got my head together and focused and said, this is what I need to do. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. Nobody's going to do it for me, and you have to do it and go and get it done. You can create your own reality. Nobody's going to do it for you. And if you're upset about the position you are in life, you just got to step back and ask yourself, how do I fix this? You can do it. You can change your reality, no matter what it is, and you've got to reach inside yourself and go and get it done. Nobody's going to do it for you. There is no lottery ticket that you're going to punch that is going to make it happen. You've got to do it for yourself. Now,
sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, were you conscious this entire time, or did you ever, were you unconscious in that 4 months?
I was conscious. That night, I'm just kind of going back there right now, and I'm laying in this bed. I'm skin and bones. Every part of my body hurt unbelievably, and I'm just rolling around, writhing, really. And yeah, I was conscious the whole time. I never slept. I couldn't sleep. That was another thing that was going on with this. I hadn't slept very much in weeks because I couldn't sleep at night.
Right. Yeah, I went through something similar, but there's no time to get into that now. But what does you touched upon this? What do you learn from that experience that you can share with everybody else? I think that is one of the greatest things. I don't care, Ray, if somebody goes to prison and comes out on the other side of that and says, you know what? There are things, whether you're stuck on a deserted island for 3 months or it's a horrific car accident or, these extreme points in life. A lot of people don't go to the extremes. They don't climb to the mountaintop. They don't survive. They don't do that. Maybe they're lucky enough that they don't. But you know what? If you go to the extremes in life and you are able to share those experiences and you get to the ripe old age of 90 and you're sitting around at the table with your grandkids and your great-grandkids and you're talking, well, I spent 4 years in prison in 1950. What? Right? And it's those life's experiences that when you get to that ripe old age, you can look back and go, man, I did this, and this, and this, and I can share. So with you, for that 4 months, what did you learn that you can share with everybody?
Well, I think what I learned is that, and boy, this is going to sound really trite. You can't give up. First of all, you can't give up. Every day has the potential, every moment has the potential to change everything that's gone before if you'll give it a chance. I think the other thing is that when you get down, a lot of people have a lot of negativity around them with other people. This is the state of humanity. We could get into a whole other discussion about what we've talked about all night and get into why I feel like we're kind of there, but people don't. You need to surround yourself with people who want to see you succeed. Who want to give you the space to do that. Because I think if you surround yourself with the naysayers and you buy into that, you'll shoot yourself down. A lot of people, get to the end of this existence and they haven't done a lot of those things that they wanted to do. They never wrote a book. I get people all the time who go, "Wow, you wrote a book. I always wanted to write a book." And it's like, I'm nothing special. I just did it. It's the same thing. You could do it too. I really believe writing a book is huge. Everyone has a book in them, I believe. I really believe that. And it has a story to tell, something that everyone could benefit from. But all of this, I think, I tie back to Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey, basically, that whole cycle that's been identified. That's what that's about, is the hero, and he uses the Buddha or Jesus or any of these great teachers. That there's this pattern of they go through these steps in the process, and one of them is they have to go to the beyond and come back. And I feel like that experience was like that for me, and it made me realize how precious this is and what a miracle it is every day. And so it just I forget. I have to be reminded. Something happens, and you kind of get that wake up call again that, hey, I'm kind of drifting off the path. But I never take any of it for granted anymore and assume that it's always going to be there, because it's never felt like it was a permanent thing ever. So I just feel like you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and go for your dreams, go for your goals. Now I'm sounding like Tony Robbins or something, but hey, that's what you got to do.
No, that is truer words have never been spoken, except for everybody's got a book in them. Not me. I am so impressed when somebody hands me their book and they say, I wrote this. I am so impressed with that. The discipline that it takes to get through not only writing it, but then the editing phase and the publishing phase, and talk about a life's journey to get that done. I just don't think I can pull that off. Is there a book in me? There may be a story there. I don't know why anybody would find it interesting or worth reading, but the discipline of writing that book, I have no idea where that comes from. And I'm so impressed with people that pull it off or write a second book, a third book, a fourth book. I look at guys like, it doesn't matter. I have friends that write a book a month. Literally are writing a book a month, a book every other month. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they pull that off and write it. They have my mad respect. Nick Redfern. I get a new Nick Redfern book in the mail every 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm thinking, how do you do this? I mean, how is it possible? So I just respect that so much. But you're absolutely right. You have to. Life is never easy. It's simply not. You cannot give up. You can't. Life is not easy. If it's rough today and you think that this is as bad as it's going to get, well, honestly, tomorrow is either going to be better or it's going to be worse. But you can't stop, right? You can't stop. Somebody said to me once, and I use this analogy a lot, and it's a true pure metaphor, but is this. Somebody asked, I don't know if it was Keith Richards, it might have been Keith Richards, and said, how do you explain the success of the Rolling Stones? Right? And he's like, dude, that's the dumbest question you could possibly ask me. How do I explain it? We never broke up. That's how I explain it. We never broke up. If we would have broken up, there would have been no Rolling Stones today. We just never broke up. So if you want to be in a successful band, don't break the band up. You keep the band together and you keep doing your thing. It's as simple as that. And you think about that for a second, Ray. Right? With your 4 months, in the hospital and not, knocking on the door, right? And that's exactly what you did. Well, Ray, how did you write those 2 books? You know what? I just did it. I didn't give up. And that metaphor goes along with anything. How do you explain the success of Fade to Black, Jimmy? How do you explain? You know what? I never gave up. You've got to roll up the sleeves. It's hard work. It's hard work. Whatever you're going to go and be successful at, building model planes or being in a band or writing books, whatever it is, whatever your bliss and your passion is, you go out and you get it done. Nobody's going to do it for you. And that's what I want to thank you so much for, Ray. I cannot wait to get you back on the show. I know you're watching Twitter, but everybody is just saying that. Marvelous show tonight. Let's do this again. And I want to thank you so much for being part of our family and everything that you have done. So thank you so much, Ray. Great, great, great show tonight.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's been an honor to be on, and I would love to come on again because there's lots more to talk about.
There is, man. Just the tip of the iceberg. But you know what? All good things come to an end, including this show tonight. Thank you so much, Ray. Be safe out there and go and hang out on Twitter.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ray Davis, everybody. Great conversation tonight. And before I depart, I wanted to touch upon a couple of things without going back and revisiting the show totally. I brought up a point earlier, and I really mean this. And I think that as more and more days and shows pass with Fade to Black, there's one thing that I'm going to continue to drive home. With all of the researchers out there, there's a lot of bright people, is the math, the timelines, and the linear sense of dating and calendars cannot be believed. We, in the modern sense, and I am talking, when I say the modern time, I am talking about from like 1500 AD on. is pretty accurate. Okay, every single day can be accounted for. Every 24-hour cycle can be accounted for. You get down to 1000 AD and prior, 900, it gets sketchier and sketchier and sketchier, to the point where I think that we are missing a lot of time out there. And what is a 24-hour cycle could be a 1 week, and things get sketchy in dating. We get to 33 AD, 0, and we start to get to BC. Things are sketchy. Nobody knows, and I don't want to hear it. They don't know. And when we start jumping back, and again, we can sort of stay in relative time by combining and cross-referencing a few calendars around the world. And we can kind of stay accurate. But to be honest, nobody knows anything. Not how long somebody stayed alive, how long these events were. We do not. And when we get to 500 BC and we start going backwards from there, pure guesswork. There is no scholar, there is nobody on this planet, nobody anywhere that can tell me that's how it is, because they weren't there. They don't have anything to base anything on. All of ancient history is based on and quoted on from a few guys from around the planet. That's it. And that has been taken as gospel. And those are merely reference points. Because all of the historians and Josephus, and thank goodness that they took the time to write things down. But we're talking about writing down oral histories. That's it. And going to, when we look at the Sumerian text, and we go back, and there are, it has been written so many times, over and over and over again. Sumerians invented writing, right? And 3000 BC, everything happened. Let me make something very clear here. And go ahead, send me the email, quote, go ahead and post on whatever and get inflamed. Let me tell you something. There are, when we look at the labels and the labeling that has been found in ancient Egypt, that writing, the Sumerian text wasn't based on letters and vocalization and sounds. It was not. It was not. The labeling that was done in ancient Egypt, going back to 3100 BC, allegedly, and earlier, is clearly predating the Sumerian text. And that writing with the Egyptians at 3100 BC and before, and this is also carbon dated and some other things that have dated this process. That's where it comes from. It doesn't come from a calendar. Is vocalization, sounds. So, wait a minute here. Now we have to pump the brakes on this truck once again. What are we actually talking about? I cannot with faith say that the Pharaoh's list and the dynastic list, of which there are 70 and whatever anybody, or 30, and everybody wants to talk about what the timeline is, and it's 2,000 years from 1000 BC and going backwards, and that's how they put this. They don't know. They don't know. There is no dating for each dynastic period. It does not. And there is nobody that has put all of this together and is accurate based on something that they can faithfully say that the dating is what it is. And to put this into context so you can understand clearly what I am saying here, there was nobody, no Pharaoh, no Khufu, no Joffrey, nobody in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dynasty that was writing stuff down that said 2000 BC. It didn't exist. So their years were based on names. They named the year, right? The year that maybe a war happened. Maybe there was a famine. Maybe there was a great abundance of wheat, or whatever made that year special. They named the year. That's it. There wasn't any chronological numbering of anything. So it's impossible to date this, or to get a linear calendar going back. And I will drive this home. Anybody that wants to argue with me is going to lose because there's nothing to back it up. My side of it is very, very easily based on what? Based on what? Celestial events? Okay, all right. You want to base it on a celestial event, then that one specific thing may be nailed down. One. We're talking about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years here. It's a huge span of time. And it could go back up all the way up into Göbekli Tepe and predate that too as well. And I will fight this forever. It's my new mission. It's my new mission. There isn't any way to date anything. There are no calendars. If you think that there was some grand fixed calendar with somebody out there writing dates on it, some priest, some dude writing on a calendar. Okay, this happened this day, and there is a big book of events where everything is blocked in and clocked and accounted for. You are wrong. It doesn't exist. Think about that. Now, I'm going to leave you with this. Man, I can't believe I did all of this tonight and didn't get to one of the most important things. Elon Musk, perhaps the world's most famous futurist, has made a career pursuing far-fetched projects, and we know what his latest is, Neuralink. That's right. Now, it turns out that he has now achieved his funding. He has $27 million in funding, and according to a filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, on Twitter, he denied that the company is seeking outside investors. In March, the Wall Street Journal reported that Musk was funding Neuralink out of his own pocket. Reports indicate now that Neuralink's initial focus will be on medical and therapeutic applications for interfaces that will help people with brain and spinal cord injuries regain movement and functionality. That's the same tack being taken by Kernel, another mind-machine startup launched by Braintree founder Brian Johnson. Johnson has invested $100 million of his own money to develop medical applications like brain chips to cure epilepsy and Alzheimer's, but his ultimate goal, like Musk, is augmented cognition for all. We are one step away from connecting to our own computers, and you need to think about that. Another Fade to Black episode is in the can. Got to thank Ray Davis. That's what I'm talking about. Fade or not, coming in tonight, bringing it strong. He represented all of you. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale, Webmaster, Drew the Geek, Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. Thank you to Ray Davis. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. All of Ray's links for everything are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Just click on Ray Davis, go to his page. Everything that you need is right there. Until tomorrow night, Fader Night. John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom Live, followed by Open Lines. I want everybody to be safe. Göbekli Tepe.